Ooh, Spider-Man showed up. Hold on, where did he go? Let's see if I can get him back. Spider. There he is. Man.
In the interest of keeping this extra interesting, I'm gonna go grab my bottle of gin.
Hey everybody, I am Damien DiCarlo. Welcome to another Making a Geek. My guests today on the show are geeks in the most authentic form. They both work in the entertainment industry of animation and just so happens to be very good friends of mine. Please welcome Will Attar and Matt Stone. What up, guys?
Hey.
All the way from Canada. How are you guys?
We're good. We don't get to see you this year because of everything that's happening, but
It's been
I'm
too
all right.
long, man. It's been way too long. Will, congratulations on getting married, by the way. Was that a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, it was the original day that we were supposed to do this, the 7th. So we just did like a little the 8th, not the 7th. Wow, I'm already losing it.
Well, I mean, by the way, you're flying through time and you're using retro graphics of my Making a Geek, which I appreciate.
Thanks. I made this myself with my incredible animation skills, but I got this cool little power wedding ring now.
Power wedding ring. Oh, that's a little different from normal wedding rings, right?
Yeah, it's got a black diamond in it, so I feel like it's more mystical.
But you guys got married a couple weeks ago. How was it? I didn't get a chance to talk about your wedding.
It was cool. It was so originally when we got engaged, we talked about doing like a destination wedding in Mexico, and then pandemic. So obviously that's out the window because who knows when the world's gonna open up again. So we were like, okay, well, we still have to legally get married in Canada. We're not allowed. We can't legally get married in Mexico. That's a bad idea. So we were going to do a small family thing anyway, and it just turned out to be a lot more special because we don't know if or when the Mexico thing will ever happen.
So originally it was supposed to be Mexico, but then you couldn't legally.
We can't. Well, like if I go to a resort now, we were supposed to do like a week at a resort with all our friends and family, and it's like I don't want to go to a resort where there's no buffet, and I don't want to wear a mask the entire time I'm there. So let's not do that, and let's just have our families get together at my parents' place, get it catered, and just have fun. And that's what we did. It was super cool.
And you did it over live stream too, right? So everyone could see.
Yeah, we did it over live stream. There was a bit of an audio blip, but we were recording it, so I threw up the recording also, and it was great. Our friend Jeff Moss, did the ceremony for us, so that was super cool. Apparently, someone could just do a ceremony, so that was neat. As long as they do the paperwork.
So it has been a dog's year since I've seen you guys. How have you guys been holding up with the pandemic and what's going on? I mean, is Canada all closed down everywhere?
Canada's a pretty hot mess too. Like it's not as bad as down in the States, but definitely we're the major metropolitan cities are not doing great. The government's kind of floundering, trying different things. Different regions have different mask laws, but people are people no matter where you go, right? Like people are going to get cagey. They want to go outside. They want to see their friends and family. So you get people breaking the same laws, same as in the States. But for the most part, I think the country's handling it pretty well. The populace is handling it pretty well.
And it over there, is it just the same strict guidelines as it is here when it comes to like restaurants and bars? Like everything's just, nothing's open unless it's just a go.
Yeah, I think common sense rules for the most part, like exactly what you'd expect is if you're inside a building, put a mask on, keep your distance, wash your hands, all that good stuff. It's none of the rules are really that stringent, it's really just common sense rules.
Yeah.
Well, you moved to Ontario, so I'm in Montreal, which is like the epicenter of COVID-19 in Canada.
Oh, man.
And yeah, so we have it like if you're indoors, you have to wear a mask. It is the law now. And if not, then the people who run the store can just call the cops and get you kicked out.
Do you get
And
fined? Is that how that works too? You get fined?
You get fined and the store gets fined. So the store has an incentive
Yeah.
to enforce the rule, but they're not allowed to do the enforcing themselves. They just call the cops, and the cops show up, and the cops are bored because there's no crime or anything going on right now. So they're like, yeah, we'll show up.
Right. We need the work.
Exactly. And but otherwise, I mean, like, you know, I take my dog out for a walk and I still see people everywhere. My parents go to restaurants twice a week, 3 times a week, and like they sit on the terrace, but they don't and in the restaurant it's usually empty. So they don't really worry about it.
Matt, you look like you have done very well for yourself. It looks like you've upgraded your home, some renovation back of you.
Yeah. I invested heavily in cartoon front housing building materials.
And you look much more dapper since the last I saw you at a con.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, the pandemic has been good for weight loss. I'll give it that. There's been a lot of really long walks, just to like get out of the house and do my thing. And because I've moved to a different place too, I'm just kind of rediscovering the area. And just like complete change in how I've chosen to eat. I definitely get the urge to overeat from like seclusion. I think the same as everybody else, where you're just like, I could just eat everything. I could eat Triscuits dipped in peanut butter and rolled in chocolate chips. That sounds great. That's a good dinner, right?
How about a hot dog Twinkie?
Still have a bag of chips at my house for you.
But for the most part, I've attempted, I mean, I backslide as much as anybody else, I think, but I've attempted to be smarter about what I eat, when I eat, stuff like that, to try and take advantage of the weirdness of this situation. If I'm gonna have to be secluded and life is gonna have to be this different, I'm gonna try to make the best of it. I'm gonna try and take advantage of the chaos of it to affect some self-change.
Right.
I've also decided to reread an entire book series, which is about 26 books.
What are you reading?
Raymond E. Feist's series of they're written in 3-book chunks, so they're like the Demon War Saga, the blah blah blah. But the original ones are Magician Master, Magician Apprentice, and then there's a whole series of triptychs of books. But all told, he put the lid on it after about 25 books. So like 25, 30 years worth of writing. I've read them all at least twice before, and I've decided I'm going to reread the whole thing right through. So I'm like 3 books in at this point. I'm trying to do about a book a week. So I'm just going to reread through a whole year. And every once in a while, because I've moved, I'm also like sorting out stuff in my brand new mansion here.
Professor X is in the background, I see.
Yeah, in this room here is the library. And I have taken out all the comics, so the 8 or 9 long boxes of comics.
Right.
I've hauled out all my.
That's on the right side of the house. That's all just filled with boxes of comics everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. Like ages of Uncanny X-Men, which I'm rediscovering as well. So I'm flip-flopping between high fantasy and X-Men, Uncanny X-Men.
Uncanny X-Men was probably the best run, I gotta say. When I grew up reading those, maybe it's just nostalgia for me, but that particular run was my favorite.
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, not to dive into the deep end, this is my first comic. X-Men 207, first comic I ever bought as a kid. That's my starting point for X-Men, and it is undeniably what started me on the path of geekdom. Like, no questions asked.
How old were you when you first picked up your first X-Men?
I guess I'd have been about 12 or 13, somewhere around there, off of like a spinner rack in a corner store.
Yeah, I remember those days. Yeah, I got mine as well. I think I might have been like 9 or 10, but same thing. It was, I can't remember which issue it was. I mean, I have it. If I pulled it out, I could tell you which one it was, but right around the same age as this. And Wolverine was such a badass for his time that it just, I immediately connected with his character, and just the way that the X-Men saga just kind of evolved from there was just so fascinating growing up in the comic book world. And The movies couldn't do it justice. Like, there's just so much. Not that the movies were bad, but there's just so much rich, like, lore of the X-Men saga that there's no time to tell it all. You know.
Yeah. On part of my move back from Montreal down to Niagara, one of my childhood friends was driving me back, and we spent 7 hours in the car. And we got in the car, and he just turns to me. He's like, "Challenge. Tell me everything about the X-Men in chronological order as you remember it." And I'm like, "Oh, Kirsch, I'll kill you." And I was talking
But
for
you took
hours.
the challenge anyway, didn't you?
Yeah, I was like, from zero, I was trying to recount everything that happened in the X-Men as best I could remember it from issue 0 to issue like 350.
How long did
Nice.
this take? A couple hours of your time?
Easily. And I'm like, I missed stuff, and we ping pong back and forth, but he and I have been friends for like, since we were like 15, 16, right? So there's an easy rapport between us, and we just like ping pong back and forth, and it was a good time. It was a really good time.
Did you get it right though? Did you get it right?
I got a lot of it right. Definitely the chronology of it got a little mixed up here and there, but I think for the most part I got most of it. It was fun. It was a fun exercise to like really stretch my geekdom to be like, how much do you remember of the thing you love, and that the thing that like formed you as a young adult, right? Like it's a weird thing. What informs us, what teaches us, what gives us a sense of self as a young person. And for me, it was undeniably comics. So going through that whole procedure of like recounting the adventures of your heroes was a fun exercise.
Yeah.
Fun exercise.
When you go that far back, especially when it means that much to you, I mean, it takes you to a totally different feel. Like when I met Jim Lee and he signed one of my old X-Men comics, I was just like, dude, I don't know how to describe what you made me feel with your drawings. Like, I don't even know you, but it's that feeling of as soon as I see his drawings again, specifically from that time, I mean, it just takes you to a different world.
Yeah. I think you just saying thank you is probably enough for him as an artist. Like,
that's all you can't say. Yeah. He won't understand. I mean, he can try to understand, but it's left for people like you and I that grew up with it, you know?
Yeah. I've had more than my fair share of embarrassing moments with high-end comic artists. So,
do tell.
Oh, man. Will, you want to recount the elevator adventure?
Oh, dear.
The elevator adventure was pretty cool. I'm trying to remember who was in it. We were in Seattle for Emerald City Comic Con, I think.
Yep.
Pretty sure I was there. And it's late at night. We'd just gone out to a nice dinner, and Stone and I had been drinking with our coworkers and stuff. And we get into the elevator, and 4 guys get in. And it's like, who was it? It was I'm so bad at names, so I don't know.
Larson. Eric Larson is in there.
Eric Larson.
I think Silvestri was in there.
What's his face? Who can't draw?
You had like the greats in one room.
Yeah, we had the Image Comics originals, except for Jim. We're piled into that elevator. I was pretty tipsy, but I was definitely I didn't notice. Everyone else in the elevator noticed.
Yeah, Rob Liefeld was there, and I think he put his head on your shoulder or something.
Yeah, Rob Liefeld was
I want to say Kirkman was in there, but I don't think so.
Who? Sorry.
Was Robert Kirkman in there too? I don't remember.
No, because I'd have yelled Kirkman.
Yeah. Kirkman!
Kirkman! No, and apparently like Rob Liefeld was really had been having a better evening than me, and just like rested his head on my shoulder. And one of the other guys is like, "I'm sorry, man. He's having a long night." And I'm like, "It's cool." And at this point, I hadn't recognized them. And everyone else in the elevator is like,
it was like 4 legends, and Somer and Lar, and I recognized 2 of them, and Somer and Lar recognized all of them, and we were just like,
longest elevator ride ever.
Yeah.
I
mean, cons have offered me, like, going to cons as a professional, as a vendor, have offered me and Will a unique experience in that, like, I got to meet Mike Mignola through his daughter, who was a fan of something that somebody else that I knew was doing. So like I got to hang with Mike Mignola for a while. At San Diego, the couple years ago, I bought my first, honest to God, no screwing around art piece when I was actually out looking for like original X-Men art and told, you cannot afford what you want to buy. I bought a piece from Art Adams and got to apologize to him for meeting him 20 years ago and screaming in his face. And he's
That's
like,
the story I thought you were going to tell, by the way.
Yeah. What is this about you screaming in his face?
so when we were maybe 18 or 19, a buddy of mine was trying to break into the comics industry as an artist. We went to Chicago and we met, we were just doing the rounds and whatever, saw a couple panels, and I'm walking down the hallway to a panel, and out of like one of the hallway washrooms, Art Adams walks in, and he's like 3 feet in front of me. Like I almost bumped into him, but I instantly recognized him, and I'm just like, Art Adams! He literally circled and walked back into the bathroom, and I'm like, fuck. Oh man, I can never talk to him again. So embarrassing. So when I met him,
You won't remember you like 5 minutes after that anyway. So
yeah, I had a really nice conversation with him in San Diego last year, where I said, you know, I had bought a piece from him, and I said to him, listen, I've been carrying around this stupid childish thing for like 20 years. I screamed in your face at a convention years ago, and I'm really embarrassed and really sorry. And he's like, I have no recollection of that. So
like, I don't even know who you are, man.
Yeah, that is your own burden, my friend, is what he said to me. I'm like,
that's great.
Yeah.
It's your problem, not mine.
Yeah.
There's so many countless con stories. My God, like thinking about that now, I'm really missing cons. Like we've missed, like at least here in America, 4 or 5 cons that I can think of already. And
more than that.
yeah, I'm getting this like withdrawal feeling. Like that's where I connected with everyone, and it was for, you know, first it was going for fun, then it became for, you know, for this, and it was going for podcasting and getting connections, you know, and the industry, and now it's just like, man, what are we gonna do? Like, when is this over? And I just remembered, you know, looking back recently when we were last hanging out in SDCC in San Diego, just the amount of people. I mean, that the thought of how many people, and everyone who has been to San Diego Comic-Con will know that what I'm talking about, the streets are just absolutely flooded with people in the Gaslamp district.
It's the only con like that in the world that I have ever seen.
It's complete insanity. It is just like an ant circus, and we're just pushing through like cattles. And to think of that now with what's going on, it's actually terrifying with how close we know. You know, we were with people, and if the virus was a factor, that would just be so terrifying. But I really do miss it, though.
Yeah. This is the longest that I've not been on a plane, and like the most days consecutively that I've been home, because we were doing anywhere from 8 to 15 conventions a year for a while, and it's just like to not go to. It's like not going to summer camp, like to not go to these places and see our friends and our friends who are other creators, or our friends who are attendees who we see in these cities every year. Like, it sucks, man. And like, don't get me wrong, I don't mind working at home and stuff like that. Like, there's some perks to the pandemic that I could point out, but the lack of Comic-Cons has hit me way more than I thought it would.
Yeah, and it's not one of those things you realize until it's gone, unfortunately, because we just took it for granted in the sense like, what would stop a Comic-Con? It's always going to happen, but nope, it didn't happen for the first time in 50 years? Like something ridiculous like that?
Well, San Diego Comic-Con is, it's kind of like a joke for exhibitors. Like, as it comes up, everyone acts like they hate the show. They're like, oh, this stupid con is coming, and it costs so much to be there, and there's so many people, and it's like $18 for a hot dog, and like, you know, just exhibitors love to resent it, even though it's Comic-Con, you know, it's the Comic-Con. And this year, when it was supposed to happen in July, that entire week, I think me and Stone and Somer and Lar were just messaging each other, being like, we should be by the water right now, hanging out with our friends. We should be, walking down and looking at the animation cells that this booth has. We should be checking out the Star Wars Pavilion. We should be checking out, did they set up another Assassin's Creed obstacle course? Or, there's so many stops that we'd love to make every single year that we're there. And it's just, it was weird to live that week and not be there.
Yeah, it was extremely weird. I actually had to be very busy that week because it was just, I don't want to say I was fully depressed, but it was just really like weird. Like I know where I'm supposed to be right now and I can't, so I need to find something else to do,
That's the hardest the pandemic has hit me was that week.
Yeah, Will and I were both like really kind of like snipey and bitter leading up to it. And I think, I don't know if it was you or me, one of us pointed out, it's like, man, we should be like, normally we'd be in San Diego right now. And
we should be day drunk on a boat.
Yeah, exactly. And we're like, yeah, I think that's why I'm pissy and bitter, is like, because my routine is so broken, and like going to do this thing that I love and hate. Like I didn't have to spend 6 hours on a plane to get there and bust my ass setting up a booth, but I also don't get to go to the Werewolf Cafe, and I didn't get to go to Baja and have a burrito, and I didn't get to, and I think it set both of us on edge without really knowing it. Like,
yeah, I didn't get harassed by the guys at Two Lumps. I didn't, all the fun stuff that like makes that week magical for us. We didn't get to see you. We didn't get to see Brian or Dre, our other friends. We didn't get to.
We didn't get to order a milkshake from a Power Ranger. Remember that, Stone?
Yeah, I didn't get to mildly embarrass myself.
Tell us the story.
Pink Power Ranger, still love you.
Leave a restaurant mid-meal to buy a waitress a milkshake.
going in. You know what though? Like, it's. At conventions and in the surrounding areas, the wait staff, especially in San Diego, the wait staff in that city, I'm sure they make a ton of extra money during that week, but they also bust their asses. People forget that like the community around a major convention works extra hard with all of a sudden 100 times more people than they regularly see. So as much as I'm a really crazy flirt, that girl deserved a nice little moment, and she really wanted a milkshake at 11:30 at night. So I went and I got her a milkshake. No harm, no foul. Like,
as I recall, it was a pink Power Ranger. It
was a pink Power Ranger, and I believe as I left in a slightly inebriated state, I may have bent over a table and spanked my own butt as a goodbye to her.
There's no gray area about that activity, my friend.
There's no way you can go anywhere other than what you did. That's it. That's it. You spanked your own ass, okay?
Yeah, and I was really excited this year to hit that tiki bar again that we hit last year. The one.
Yeah, that was such a nice place.
I vaguely remember how to get there because we had to drunkenly stumble back after. And like that was, I kind of remember.
We stumbled, and I think we rode scooters for a little while. Like, imagine the infection rate.
No, they took the scooters away.
Yeah, I remember following Brian and Drea there, but I don't remember how I got there because I was busy in conversation. And next thing I know, I feel like I'm either in the Tiki Room or in the Rainforest Cafe. I'm just like,
I think the three of us.
Not what I thought was in here.
Yeah, I thought the three of us Ubered there together, but I can't remember.
Oh wait, we did Uber that. I walked back. Yeah. That's what that was. I walked back.
Yeah, walk back was mysterious and magical.
Yeah. But that's the adventure of a con, right? Is especially, I think, especially for the exhibitors. Sunday night, if you're not flying out at 6 a.m. the next day, Sunday night is such a release. Like, you get to catch up with those last few friends, go out. If hopefully you're not flying early the next day, and you can get a little more in you than you should have, and because you can't do that on the Friday night.
No,
you'll be paying for it for 2-3 days. that Sunday night is such a release at conventions for exhibitors. It's when you really get to like finally relax and tell all your stories and just like chill out and have a really good time.
That's the best part of the cons, is really, especially when you do a little bit of work there, you get to go and geek out with your fellow geeks. It's just a nice place to be. I mean, I really miss just enjoying what we do for work there, and for me, last time I had a panel there at LA Comic-Con, we had a great panel with Drea and Brian, and then afterward it was just kind of like pure hangout, and we didn't have to worry about the crowds. We were doing well, everything was just it was just good. I really just miss those days where we could be in touch with what we love and what we love to do for work. Hopefully we get that back soon.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what 2021 brings. Like, there's a weird mentality that like once the calendar year flips, everything's going to be back on, and I don't think that's necessarily the case.
I don't think people are going to just jump right in. I think it's going to be a little bit of a culture shock in the sense that let's just go with a new generation. If this were to go on, God forbid, but if it goes on a little bit longer, the new generation of young ones, they're going to be raised during COVID, and they're not going to feel comfortable, commiserating with those. It's going to be like, it's going to be weird, but then at the same time, geeks kind of keep to themselves anyway. So it just depends on the type
but
of
not at a con. Like, New York Comic Con and San Diego Comic Con are the two shows where you just have to realize that you're always going to be touching somebody. Like, that is just it. It's so packed with people that you're just like, and it's an art to like walk through those crowds.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You got to do it.
You're just zipping through the whole time.
Seattle Emerald City Comic Con is going to be the one that tells us what the year is going to be like. That's what I think.
For years and years, cons have proclaimed like this is a safe space, and I think that's got to carry over to the intelligence of fighting off the pandemic, of better practices, right? Of like washing your hands and maybe a little more distance and whatever. Like kids that are going through this now they're going to grow up differently. They're going to handle themselves differently when it comes to certain social aspects. And I think when that comes to conventions, it's going to make a real big difference on what the fans need from a convention, what the fans require from a convention.
I just want them to clean up the bathrooms just a little bit better. Every con I go in there, like I wish I would have had that the face mask that we use now, because it was just, oh man, it was awful. Anyway,
is there any convention hall that you've been to that has in a men's room a urinal trough similar to like a stadium?
No, I've never seen it.
The most awkward trough for a man. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. No, they're horrible, but like it's weird to me that no convention center has ever adopted that the way a sports complex has.
Yeah, I think Germany, they didn't have a trough, but it was like, I don't know how to describe it, a bunch of tiny cups next to each other almost in the wall. It was like if urinals were just really stacked close to each other.
In a wall.
Yeah, it looked like this, like a movie theater sized cup. And it was just like in the wall, and it was just, we would be touching if we'd be next to each other. That's what Germany had. And I walked in, and the floor, this was at Essen Spiel, which is like the biggest tabletop gaming convention in Europe, and it's in Germany. And the floor was like, I would have assumed there had been flooding at some point because it was just like an inch of water kind of deal. God, I hope it was water.
Yeah, I was about to say, are you sure that was water?
Well, so the exhibitors started conspiring. We're like, there's a secret bathroom. And this was like I think there were 16 halls in this convention center. Like, it's a huge show. And they're like, okay, between these two halls, there's like a fire stairwell. And you go up halfway, and there's a secret bathroom no one knows about. So that's where you got to go. And that's what happens at a lot of shows. Like Calgary, I know where the good bathroom is. Toronto, I know where the good bathroom is. San Diego.
You've been to many conventions when you know where the good bathrooms are.
Gen Con's the only one without a good bathroom. I don't know why, but it's also the only, I've seen weird stuff in that bathroom. One time I walked into a stall, banana.
Just a banana.
Banana.
Okay.
That's it. I saw one guy at a urinal reading a rule book for an RPG while peeing, and I was like, "You can take a second."
That's a long pee.
And as soon as he finished, a guy walked out of the stall, also holding a rule book open in his hand. So
Wow, those are some dedicated GMs.
that's Gen Con Indianapolis. That's Gen Con and San Diego are like the big two every year for us, I think. And it's just, they're wonderful and magical.
Yeah, as much as we trash it, I honestly would take it as it is now. I just miss it so much. But so now that we're talking about business and cons, for my viewers, let us know what you guys do for work. That way they can kind of know why you're there.
Go ahead, Will.
You want? All right, I'll do it. So we work for a company called Blind Ferret Entertainment, which started in 2003. So essentially, this one guy, Ryan Somer, we've mentioned him a few times now, started a webcomic called Least I Could Do. And he wanted to monetize it, and he gave himself 3 years to make money off of it, and he pulled it off. And the way he did that was by getting into web advertising and starting a web ad business with this guy, Randy. And that's where Blind Ferret came from. A few years later, he started another comic called Looking for Group, LFG, and that boomed like crazy. There was a musical number that went out, and he started doing animations for it and stuff. And Blind Ferret started really getting into the animation game until, well, Asia can do it for a lot cheaper, so we had to shut down the animation studio. Fast forward, we tried a whole bunch of stuff as a company. Stone joined, I joined. We've been there for about 10 years now.
Yep.
And we've done a lot of things. We had a mystery box, like a subscription service for comic books. We had a subscription service for board games. We dabbled in video games for a bit. We moved over to mobile advertising. And all that time, we were just like, we still want to do animation. And, well, Asia got a middle class. And the technology for animation got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, to the point where we were able to do it again, and people would hire us because the cost difference was not big enough to lose, like the fact that we could be in the same time zone and there's no middleman for communication, that made the cost difference worth it. So now we're technically two companies. We're Blind Ferret, which is still mobile marketing and affiliate marketing and stuff like that, I think. I don't really know the right words for that because I'm on the other side, which is Laughing Dragon Studios, which we are an animation studio, 2D animation studio.
And this is based out of Canada, where you guys are located, right?
Yeah, based out of Montreal. We do have some people working remotely everywhere, like Lar, who is the artist for our comics, which are still going, and the comics are the reasons why we do all these conventions, because we have a big following, is in Acton, Ontario. Stone, you said you're near Niagara. The rest of us are in Montreal, but we also have people kind of scattered everywhere now.
Yeah. As a company, we've always had our fingers in a lot of pies. As Will mentioned, like we grew up during the webcomic boom back in the day, and that's where conventions come in. Is webcomics people did really well at conventions. When it was, a decade ago, it was still, conventions weren't what they are now.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
Conventions have changed.
I mean,
even
just like 10 years ago, cons were so different when I first started going.
100% different. So, I mean, you had all these people that were at that point, in a weird way, following like what Image had done, where they branched off and went and did their own thing as independents because they could. Webcomics allowed even smaller people to take a crack at doing their own creations, their own whatever. And that's kind of when our company started, was during that boom. So what I ended up doing for them when I came in is handling logistics and warehouse stuff. So I looked after, like, in some small part, booking flights, booking hotels, sending the product out, whether it was fulfilling the store orders or the sending pallets down to conventions, all that kind of stuff. I handled a lot of the physical elements. So we But I mean, for years, like Will mentioned, we were doing between 8 and 15 cons a year.
Yeah.
And that may sound like a lot, but there's a lot of our friends that like 15 is a light year for them. They'll do
20 to 30 is what like Josh was hitting at one point.
Yeah. They'll just
a lot
go
of
from
flying. That's a lot of flying.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
we know some people who drive.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a lifestyle now.
It's dedication right there to drive. Wow. Okay, so you guys have been everywhere. And this is part of the gig. This is part of the game. You get out there and you promote, and but you meet great people. I met you guys one of these conventions,
Exactly,
and you know, and you just connect with those that are supposedly your consumer, but your consumers end up being good friends because you bond on the same things that you do, and you
Like-minded
most
people.
of the time you love what you do.
Yeah, I think like I could think in every city that we go to, there is obviously there's a lot of people that I see year after year, but they come, they say hi, they buy something, they leave, and I don't really remember them because I meet hundreds of people every year. But there's a handful of people in every city where it's like, oh man, like I'm so happy to see you. Like we know these guys in Oregon that come to Emerald City Comic Con that we used to see, like Daryl and Jordan and Gene, who would come and they'd like, one, they'd bring us gifts, which is not a bad deal. I would bring Canadian maple syrup down, and he would bring me something that we can't get in
Nice. That's the way to do it.
Like AK-47s.
Canada. AR-15s. No, what did he gave me like whiskey and stuff like that. Just like we just gift exchange or you know, there's people in every city that we see at the booth every year. They hang out. There's a term that exhibitors use. This is probably, I don't know if it's a secret or anything, but I'm going to spill it. Called booth barnacle, which is a person that will not leave your booth no matter how badly you want them to. And they're detrimental because they are stopping business by being extra weird, usually. And these people are not booth barnacles. They're legitimately have become good friends after all these years. I have them on Facebook. I tell them, like, if you guys ever come to Montreal, you got a place to stay. Like,
So what would classify as weird? What would be a weird interaction?
Man.
Oh,
Man.
Will, you put Will on the spot. He's like, I don't want to dance this dance.
maybe
I can think
generalization. Let's generalize this.
So weird is typically like, well, if someone overshares and we just met, that's a big red flag right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Like overshares about their life and like
Yeah.
They
don't leave. Like they're there for 45 minutes, an hour and a half, 2 hours. They're just there. Like they just don't go.
Linger.
They inject themselves into other conversations with other people.
They're more interested in talking about the thing they want to talk about than actually paying attention to the language of the conversation of the person they're having a conversation with. Like they don't know how to. It's like really not being good at social communication in general.
But that could also be a component of the fact that people are very overstimulated there. You know, because if you and I are working or Stone or something doing something behind the background, this is something different when you're because I've been there many times as the consumer of like, oh man, I can't. There's just so much to take in right now. But for especially you guys more than me, it's just you go in and you're like, oh man, this is just another con. All I see is just people walking by, whatever. But for people that go for the first, second time, you never know that might be your audience that is in front of you at that moment. They don't know how to carry the conversation because they don't know what to say.
Yeah, we respect that. So we're never mean to them. And we like, if a person's going to hang out and talk to us for an hour, I will talk to them for an hour. I've only noped out of 2 conversations in my entire existence of doing cons. And it's both times have been because the voice was so funny that I couldn't take it. Like a guy sounded like a droopy. I just like the dog, like, ooh, like just so sad and everything. And I could not handle it. And I had to swap out with someone else so they could talk to him.
And credit where credit's due, Will. You deserve props for that because you didn't want to embarrass or insult that person. Which is a credit to you both as like a vendor and as a person. Sometimes exhibitors have to put up with a lot. you've been there, like,
Oh, like offensive t-shirts and
yeah. It can be long days, and certain personalities can get on your nerves, and maybe you're having a bad day, and you never want to take that out on the person in front of you, because it's a special experience for them. Like, just because I do 10 shows a year doesn't mean the person in front of me has the privilege of going to 10 shows, or has the privilege of interacting with the person that they want to interact with frequently. So you don't want to sour someone's fandom. You don't want to take away from it.
Someone who is excited to do a show, I live vicariously through, because you're correct that a lot of it has become jaded for me after doing. This year I was going to pass 100 shows, and I couldn't do it this year. But like, if someone comes to the show and they're like, "Oh my God, I met Jim Lee and I saw this, and look at this thing I bought," I'd be like, "Yeah, all right, you get it. You are having the time of your life. You are the best." It doesn't matter if you made your own Spider-Man costume and it doesn't look like Spider-Man. Like, you are so excited that I am so excited for you. Like, I love that.
We're privileged. We're privileged on that front, that like we get to experience other people's joy, and that feeds us. Like, undeniably, the show, when we're like having other people come up to us, fans, or even people that are just discovering what we happen to do at our booth for our company, people are generally pretty joyous, pretty excited, even overstimulation is fine. They just want to share their joy. So it's important, I think, for vendors to remember, like, you may be tired, but like, everyone around you is trying to have a good time. Yeah. So, grin and bear it every once in a while. If you get a booth barnacle, as it were, just endure it, because if that's the hardest thing you have to do that weekend, it's not that bad a weekend.
I remember there was a C2E2 Chicago that happened during St. Patrick's Day, and they were serving beer at the convention, which seems like an obvious mistake they shouldn't have made, and yet they made it. And someone was drunk and stumbling, and we had like an iPad display in the booth. We were there for one of our subscription services, and they just like broke the iPad, and like stuff like that happens. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah,
like just
it's the
pay
stuff
attention.
that we don't always hear about.
Yeah, and it sucks, because you're like, listen, I know you're here and you're looking around, but you're also drunk and stumbling right now. Like, pay attention.
Yeah.
And I think there's only two things that someone will come to our booth that legitimately annoys me. And I get it, but like, there's right ways and wrong ways to approach the situation. The first one is, "Hi, do you have anything that's free?" It's like, we do, but that is a terrible way of asking it. Like, try to get to know what our brand is, ask us questions, communicate with us, pick up a book and flip through it and say, "Sorry, I can't afford it right now. I have to check out some other stuff first. Do you have anything that I could take to remember it?" Like, there's easy ways to ask for free stuff that isn't just like, "Hi, I'm just here for the free stuff, even though you guys paid a lot to be here to make money." Like,
and I think that depends on the vendor, because some just hand out free stuff. They don't even really engage the way you guys do, I've noticed. Some of them just hand out the free stuff, and that's it.
I feel like the majority of people are cons to make money, but you're right there. There are some people that have sections of just like, take our free stuff.
Yeah, take the free stuff. You don't have to talk to us. Just take it.
Yeah. Cons are a very particular beast, a very weird beast in society. Like, there's a very diverse rule set, and again, we're on the inside. We have the privilege of going to a bunch of them, so we know the different stratas, the different levels that things interact on. Whereas, somebody going to a con for the first time may not have a clue, and myself included. Like, fans can be awkward. I've had my awkward moments in front of people, so sometimes you're not at your best at a show, and it happens. They
happen to catch you the one moment that you weren't doing good.
Yeah.
Because it's true. I mean, we all get very tired at cons. I mean, even fans and consumers that are there, no matter what, we're exhausted. So at the end of the day, especially when vendors hit right around Sunday. It's like they are checked out, but they're there. You know, they have to be there. And as long as we remember that, if as a consumer we come up to them, you know, give them a break. You know, they've had a hard weekend. They've seen 1,000+ people every day.
Yeah.
You know, and I get it from where you guys are coming from. Those kind of people are the ones that are always excited to be there. Every day is Disneyland. You know, basically picture the workers at Disneyland. It's much worse, you know, because every day is like the con for the first day. You know, everyone's so excited to get there, and you have young children involved. So then it's like you have to, you know, you have to bring your A game. You know, you have to make it magical. So in this case, I'm very grateful that it is just a weekend. I personally have never been a vendor, but I can only imagine.
Well, you're standing on your feet for 10 hours a day for 3 to 4 days. And you're not the only one doing this. Like, you might have a chair in your booth where you sit, but obviously it's better when you stand. Attendees are standing the entire time almost. And if you have a full weekend pass, forget it. You're standing 4 days. Your feet are dead. You're tired. It takes not just a physical toll, but like a psychological and emotional toll. So yeah, if people who are there the entire time, by that Sunday, you're running out of candle.
Yeah. And we have the oasis of a booth to be in, whereas as an attendee, you don't get a booth. You're pushing through the crowd constantly. So like, we get it. We get it. Everybody can get great nerves
into the booth to recover.
Yeah.
Like, so we've seen people struggling down the aisle, and we're like, do you need to sit for like 5 minutes just to rebuild yourself? Because you are struggling here, and they appreciate it.
No, it's very easy to lose it at a con for sure. When was the last time you guys went as an attendee?
Ooh.
Man, I can't even. So it's weirdly enough, I've been prodding Will for the last little while. I've never been to Gen Con at all as either a vendor or an attendee, and I'm dying to go. So even if we don't get to go as a company next year, I've been dogging Will the last little while. I'm like, we should just go to Gen Con. Like, we just pile in the car, hop a flight, go down to Gen Con.
It's not a hard sell. Like, that is the show that I want to go to the most as an attendee that I haven't been to as an attendee, because it is 4 days of tabletop gaming. I just want to play Pathfinder, Starfinder. I want to I do this thing where I set a budget and I try to pick up as many small indie games as I can within that budget. And Gen Con is the most fun show to do. I think the last show I did, not counting Montreal Comic Con.
Yeah, that would be the last one I did because it was a local show.
Yeah.
What was the last
I
one?
did Fan Expo a few years ago. I did that as an attendee because I was like, I want to do the biggest show in Canada once as an attendee, because I'm tired of exhibiting this show. Like, I grew to resent that show for a lot of reasons. And I was like, I just want to be here as a fan. And I went with my dad and my brother. And then after that, I took a road trip to Pennsylvania to basically go to an artist retreat, and then took a train back up to Montreal or something.
So Gen Con is over there, or is that over here?
Gen Con's in Indianapolis.
Indianapolis, and that's all tabletop gaming?
Oh man, you gotta check out this.
All gaming, like
all gaming,
tabletop,
video games, board gaming.
Yeah, it's 50 plus years. It is like, it's been going on for decades. It is one of the biggest shows. It is all tabletop gaming, and it's such a different vibe than a Comic-Con, because like a Comic-Con or a pop culture show, you know what it's like you're walking down aisles with tables, and like there's a table splitting you from the merchandise and the vendor, and you're just going from like shop to shop to shop. It's a marketplace. Gen Con, every booth is open and inviting, and you get welcomed in to sit down and try out this game, and you play it with people you've never met before, and you have a good time for like anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour demoing this game. And then you're like, yeah, I'm going to spend $140 on this game because you just gave me an experience way beyond a pitch that you would get at a Comic-Con.
Yeah, this is way more interactive than a Comic-Con.
It could never happen during the pandemic.
Well, the other thing is you read a comic alone, right? So and you watch movies quietly, unless you're watching a bad movie, at which point everyone's throwing jokes and stuff. But like, games are a very social thing, so just the type of attendee is an entirely different breed of attendee because they're very social and they're very playful and they're very interactive. So at that show, instead of sitting behind sitting behind a desk or a table and being like, "Hi, this is Looking for Group. It's a fantasy comedy adventure story where you blah 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 blah." I'm like, "Hey, come and check out our board game. It's called Orphans and Ashes. You run around an orphanage trying to save or kill orphans from a burning orphanage, and you play this game with these people and just have a really good time. And you talk to them and you get to know them, and you're an animator, like you are an entertainer, and it's so different. And the convention, so the exhibit hall is the shortest hours out of any convention I've ever done. Like an 8-hour exhibit hall, 10 to 6, and then you're done.
But the con
itself is 24 hours. So there are rooms open 24 hours a day. Some attendees don't even get hotel rooms. They just like go to the bathroom to clean up at the beginning of every day. But they'll be up all night playing D&D, or they'll go to the table room and it's just like a football field worth of tables where people are playing board games, or there's like Artemis, which is like a Starship bridge simulator, and they have that set up with like tablets and joysticks and stuff where you can join a crew, and like it's insane. And that's another con that not to the same degree, but Indianapolis knows when Gen Con's happening, because Indianapolis is not that massive to begin with. So when a Comic-Con worth of people show up to play board games,
it's
you know they're there.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of SDCC for gaming, for board games.
Yeah, the closest it comes to spilling out of the con is that the convention center has sky bridges connected to all the big hotel chains. So Marriott's, Westin's, Crown, like all of them. There's like 8 hotels that have sky bridges that connect directly to the convention center. So when you walk into the Marriott, on the ground there's people playing Magic the Gathering, and like you go to the lounge or the bar and there's people playing like maybe a dice game or a board game or a card game, or playing Werewolf, and you just have a circle of people sitting around with their eyes closed, and you're like, I don't know what's going on, but it's clearly something.
Yeah, and the more crowded, the more fun it looks. I had the opportunity of going to the retro gaming convention in Portland for Retro Game Night, the other podcast that I had going, and it was kind of that same vibe. It was very interactive. I suddenly found myself in a con where it was more hands-on with people, getting to know people, and playing these games that either we did play or ones that we didn't play before, and it was fun. It was different. I think Comic-Con is more for the appealing of just looking or buying. And then and the same with the panels. You go looking at a panel, go to the next one. But
let me ask you something real quick. Would you do, now that we have a pandemic going on, just the idea of 1,000 or 10,000 people touching a controller, does that weird you out in any way mentally now?
Honestly, thanks for asking a question on me, by the way. No, I think I was kind of weird about it before anyway. I'm by no means am I a germ freak, but I've always noticed when things are just dirty. So it was something I always noticed, and it was always something like I would go make it a point to wash my hands. But yeah, even now more so, that if I were to go back to those kind of conventions or what have you, or an arcade of some sort, that would be probably more heightened now.
Pull out a Lysol wipe and just
the Lysol wipe would be instantly out and just wiping. Yeah. No, because I mean, honestly, viruses are out there. They've been out there forever, and nobody wants to get sick. But some people are more passive. They know that if it's a cold, I'll get over it. If it's the flu, I'll get over it. But when it comes to something like COVID, I mean, that's a whole different game.
Yeah, for sure.
You've done conventions. You must know about con crud.
What's that?
Con crud? Have you never heard that term?
No, never heard it.
Oh man, maybe it's just an industry term. Then every time when you do a convention, you do not take care of yourself properly. when you're an exhibitor, because you're not eating regular or healthy meals. You're not hydrating, but you're talking for 12 hours straight. And which is phenomenal for a beer at dinner, because one beer knocks you out.
Just makes it bad.
Which we have so many stories about.
Yeah, you'll have to invite us back for just story time.
But but since you don't really take care of yourself, and you're up late every night, and you're up way early every morning, and our flights are always at like 5 or 6 a.m. for some reason, because that's when they're cheap, obviously. But like, there's a real thing that the industry calls con crud, which is right after a convention, unless you're really good at taking care of yourself, you're gonna get sick. And you're going to get sick hard for like 3 to 4 days.
It only happened once to me. Only once out of 10 years of going to a con that I got sick. And I think that maybe it is that. Maybe I just took good care of myself. And I was kind of I don't know, maybe I am a germ freak. I don't know. I was just very careful. But it was one time I got sick.
The closest equivalent I can say is if you've ever worked retail, it's similar to the post-Christmas implosion, where you just work really hard for like the 2 weeks leading to Christmas. You're not taking care of yourself. You're working really hard. If you've ever worked retail, you know.
I totally know what you mean. Definitely.
Yeah. And you're just on your ass for like 3 days afterwards, and then you get
your immune system is down because you're exhausted. I did retail for about 12 years of my life, and I did some managing too, and it was the same thing. Yeah, you would get that moment where you're just so tired and so wasted from your day, especially during the holidays, that, especially during flu season. I mean, you're gonna get something, whether you're gonna fight it off quick or not. But in this case, I mean, at a con, that was that's the most people I think I've ever been around in my whole life.
Yeah. So to answer your question, which I never actually did, the last convention that I attended may have been like 20 years ago. The last convention I attended as not a vendor. I couldn't remember the name of that convention. It was in a hotel in Toronto. A buddy of mine was working at Canada's Wonderland as a Klingon at the time. He was working. Hey, Brendan, what's up, buddy? Damien, I think you know Brendan Fletcher.
Brendan worked as a Klingon?
Yeah, Brendan was a Klingon at Canada's Wonderland for a couple of years.
You never would have known, Will.
How am I only finding out about this now, about Brendan?
He'd been booked to work that convention, and he called me, and he's like, "Hey, you really need to come up to this show. I've been hanging around, and Spider Robinson is here. You should come up because I've been talking with him." Spider Robinson is a Canadian science fiction author who's done a ton of books since the 70s. He is arguably my favorite writer, undeniably my favorite sci-fi writer. He's an amazing novelist. I immediately hung up the phone, walked out to the car, got in the car, drove up to this hotel, went to the convention, got to hang out with my buddy Brendan in Klingon regalia, and this was like Paramount sanctioned, so this was like proper movie set level makeup, and got to hang around with one of my favorite authors. Got to ask him all sorts of questions about his novels. Got invited up to his hotel room with about 10 or 12 other people. Brendan went and got his guitar out of his trunk. And because Spider's also a very like musical kind of guy, so like people were singing songs and he's playing guitar. I also got to, so I ended up staying in Toronto that night. Came back the next day, got to hang out with a guy who is a painter, because I used to paint scale miniatures, who brought Games Workshop to Canada. The guy that I was hanging out with brought the first shop to Toronto. So I got to learn from a master painter. It was a really good weekend as a last con first, ages ago. It was a really good show.
Brandon went from being a Klingon to writing Batgirl and like
yeah. So yeah, that's my last con story. But Damien, because you said you like having questions asked of you, Will and I are gonna flip the tables on you now. We're hijacking this podcast.
Do it. Haven't had this done yet.
My first question to you is, who's your favorite Muppet?
My favorite Muppet. It's. Why do I feel like this is a trick question?
It's not a trick question. It is a random, chaotic question.
I'm gonna go with Fozzie.
Okay.
Yeah,
Legit.
he's hilarious. He has always cracked me up. He's always been the klutz. Yeah, Fozzie Bear is, he's just such a fun-loving guy. Why wouldn't you like Fozzie?
Yeah.
Good guy.
There's no wrong answer, man. Like every Muppet it should be your favorite. Will, how about you?
For some comic questions, favorite Spider-Man, not movie, comic.
Spider-Man run or favorite Spider-Man character?
Character.
2099. Spider-Man 2099 has always fascinated me. And I think it was just because it came at a really awesome time when I was a kid that future heroes were amazing. This was before anything Batman Beyond or anything that was coming out. So when the 2099 series came out, I always saw that as a fascination of, here's a run that I've already seen for so many years as a kid growing up with their comics. But then the writers took it to a future realm. So I'm like, okay, so these are new characters, new villains. How do they tie into the old? Is there any tie? Yeah, he was just awesome. The costume was great. It was just the run was awesome. I wish they would keep it going forever. Really good. I'm glad that they brought him into
by Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse. Yeah, I hope they continue with that because he's such an awesome dude.
Damien, have you ever attended a movie premiere in any kind of costume? Have you ever worn a cape or a mask or an outfit, something beyond just like a t-shirt?
I had once worn a front mask of a Batman mask to the Dark Knight. That's about as much as I dressed up, and then quickly took it off as soon as the movie started.
That's legit.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys that really doesn't dress up. I mean, it's one of those, like, I actually have never cosplayed aside from minor little, things, but it wasn't like I full on dressed up, and I'm not against it. I guess I always feel like there's so much better people that put so much work and effort into it that if I were to just show up with my rinky-dink little, whatever I came up with would be nothing. So I just never bothered.
Okay, legit.
Have you guys ever cosplayed?
I attended the first Michael Keaton Batman movie in a cape and cowl.
Ooh, nice.
Really?
Yeah. Me, Carl, and Brendan and Ty, my childhood friends who, weirdly enough, allow me a moment here because we were talking earlier about how you get to go to conventions and you get to meet like-minded people. You meet like Daryl and the guys. You get to meet a bunch of people who were really good friends you didn't know you had till you met them in cities on the other side of the country, in another country. Like you get the privilege of meeting a bunch of really awesome people. I happen to have met my best friends in a comic shop growing up when I was like 14, 15, 16. All my closest best friends I met in a comic shop. Carl, Ty, Brendan, Will knows them all. They are the guys I would take a bullet for. And I met them growing up in a comic shop, and I can honestly say some of the best friends I have made in other cities, other countries, have been people I've met in the comic store of a convention. It's where you get to meet people that share the same thought processes, the same values, the same loves as you do. So
the only reason I got hired at Blind Ferrets to begin with is because they had a physical, like a brick and mortar comic book shop called The Fourth Wall, run by Jeff Moss. And I was just finishing college, starting to look at university, but no idea what I wanted to do. And like in Quebec, it's a little different. We have something called CEGEP in university. It's this whole thing. But I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and I had an opportunity to be a producer at a radio station. And I've been going to this comic book shop 3 times a week. like buying books and just hanging out with Moss. Sometimes I'd go up and not buy anything and just hang out with Moss because I love talking with him. And he was like, look, we need a guy at Blind Ferret working in the warehouse. It's not what you want to do, but it's a good company and it'll become something. I'm like, yeah, like warehouse or a producer at a radio station. Like, I want to work in media. And Moss is like, I was a producer for 10 years and news top 10 in Toronto. And trust me when I say you don't want to do it. Like, it is not a glamorous or fun job, and the business eats people alive.
Yeah, there's always a dark side to every, career, and that would obviously be that for that.
Yeah, and what's fun is my friend took that same opportunity, so I got to see what happened. And so I went to Blind Ferret, obviously, and started in the warehouse, and then they found I could do video, and then my job had evolved and changed there, because when I started, we were like 6 people in the company, and now we're over 50. So my job has changed as the company has grown a lot. And none of that would have happened if I hadn't been a comic nerd going to a comic shop, buying comics like The Boys or Transnet, or, just asking Moss, like, I'm done these books you recommended. Give me something new, which you can't really do with like Comixology or online ordering or, jerks who pirate comics and stuff like that.
There's something to be said for the old-fashioned way, which is going in person and meeting. You meet. Yeah. It's our coffee shop. It's a coffee shop for us. We go and do our purchases, but you never know who you meet or who you connect with, and that's the name of what we do. We connect to fellow geeks.
Yeah, well, that comic shop changed my life. Like, I met Stone and Silmer and Laura. I met you because of that comic shop. I met my wife because of that comic shop. Like, that comic shop started me down a road that led me to have everything I have today, which is incredible. And my friend who took the job in radio worked an average of 70 hours a week for multiple years, and now does TV also, and moved to Ottawa, and like, he's doing well, but he never seems happy or has free time. So I'm very, very grateful that Moss pushed me in the right direction, and that's why he officiated my wedding.
and that's the point of this show. We as geeks, we go to these places, these cons. We keep in touch like this to do a show, and we're just grateful that we have each other to kind of bounce off our geekness, because sometimes some people don't, and you go through those withdrawals when you want to just geek out about a certain subject, and that's how you connect. And I personally am grateful to know you guys, and that this has been a great time. Before we wrap up, where can folks find you on social media and what you do with Laughing Dragon and Blind Ferret?
Oh man, that's an excellent question. So for Blind Ferret, Stone, do you want to do your stuff first? Do you have anything you want to share?
I mean, none of my social media has anything to do with my geekdom per se, so it's pretty.
But you grew up some woodworking stuff. We're both woodworkers also.
Yeah, we could geek out about woodworking,
Yeah. I mean, that's. Beyond like comics and movies and role playing games and stuff like that. Will and I are both geeks for other stuff. Like we both really love woodworking and making stuff and 3D printing. We both super got into playing paintball.
We made a gaming table just to play RPGs with a TV in it. We made like. Yeah.
Boy, did we get in over our head on that. That was like our first major project right out of the gate with woodworking, was building a TV. It hasn't fallen down yet, and it now has a TV in it, so it's not that bad. But I mean, we're both more or less support staff kind of guys, so I'm not sure. Like,
not me.
No, that's right.
Well, enlighten me in case my audience just happens to follow you guys. Where can they find you?
So for the comics that we work for, there's licd.com, which brings it to leastICould.com. It's kind of like a raunchy slice of life comic. So it starts off with being about a guy who sleeps around a lot, and it kind of grows and evolves as he grows and evolves. And now he's very political, but still goofy. lfg.co brings you to Looking for Group, which if you play fantasies or RPG games and stuff like that, this is the comic for you. It parodies all of that, and it parodies fantasy books, and it parodies fantasy movies. and it parodies like an actual D&D game, but it is its own very good story and in-depth world. And sometimes we deviate from the main plot because that's what you do in an RPG. How many side missions do you do in Skyrim before you actually hit the main mission, right?
How about on social media, or can people find you on that with what you do, or?
So for me personally, Will Makes Motion, so Will_makes_motion on Instagram. That is where it's a new Instagram, so it's still fresh, but I throw up some animation videos. I'll be throwing up this background next, and I'll be sending you a copy also. But just fun animations that I do. For Laughing Dragon, laughingdragon.studio, you can see the projects that I work on. We've done stuff for Rooster Teeth, and we're working on so many things that NDAs prevent me from saying.
Stone, how about you? Where can folks find you?
I mean, for the most part, if you want to be amused by chaotic randomness, you can check me out on Instagram. At Octostone is pretty much my handle on anything social. So feel free to chase me there. But Instagram is the current weapon of choice for putting out my personal brand of nonsense into the universe.
Beautiful. We wouldn't have it any other way. You can find me on Instagram at Damien_DeCarlo. Making a Geek _podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe and that little bell for this channel for more cool content. Will and Matt, thank you so much for being on our show. We could go on for hours, honestly, and we'll probably do a part 2 to this. So thank you for coming out. Wish you guys well during COVID. Until next time, everybody, keep calm and geek out. Good night, everybody.